My name's Guy Kestivan. I've been a professional mountain bike and kit tester for nearly 25 years. And today, this is the Tech Talk round on the Santa Cruz Blur X01 Axis Reserve. Because if you've watched the live ride, or even if you haven't yet, I've gone through all the riding emotions and sort of sensations on there, but I got so carried away on it, I've forgotten a lot of the tech detail. So, if you want to get some of the tech detail on this and the full spec run through, this is the one to watch. Let's crack on. So, Blur XC, this is the 100mm travel version. That's because you get a 40mm stroke, 190mm long, RockShox Sid Lux shock in the back there, rather than a 45mm stroke shock, which is what gives the TR version 115mm travel. And up front, you get a RockShox Sid SL Ultimate, again, 100mm travel fork. But you know, as you'd expect from an XC spec, super light. That's a 1323 gram fork, and you're getting 1400 gram Reserve Santa Cruz Reserve 28 SL wheels. Actually, these are a little bit heavier than that because these have got DT Swiss hubs in them. It should get the i9 hubs, but this has just got DT Swiss hubs in there. So a bit slower, a bit clunkier, but super reliable. Rest of the headline spec, as you'd suggest, SRAM X01 Axis Reserve, so you've got the battery in there, it's fully wireless, 1050 Eagle cassette on the rear, X01 crank in carbon there, dub oversized BB, and then X01 trigger shifter up here. It's analog in terms of the seat post. This is a Fox transfer post, and it's the SL version. So again, 100mm travel there, and it's got a very binary action, so it's either up or it's down, which, you know, some people might like a bit more subtlety in terms of having a slightly, you know, sagged ride height on it, like the old Fox DOS post, but I actually kind of quite like the kind of binary kind of, you know, it's either on or it's off. You're either bombing downhill or you're charging uphill on it, because that is what this bike is for. It's just flat out. I mean, like I say, I got totally carried away on the live ride review and spent like nearly half an hour and still missed a ton of stuff just because it's such an emotional piece of engineering, this bike. And so how have they achieved that? In terms of angles, it's actually still pretty trad in terms of XC. I mean, 68.3 degree head angle, still pretty steep, and then 75.8 degree seat angle. So plenty of forward push on the saddle there, getting into a really, really good climbing position. And just going back to the clearances down there, it'll go up to a 36 tooth chainring. Actually comes with a 34, which is kind of appropriate for most riders, but if you're a racer with the muscle to move it, you can get a 36 on there as well. And you get a little chain keeper tab on top, because although it's a race bike, it's still properly tough setup. This, you can see, really big chainstay guard on there to stop chain slap, and then under the belly you've got another plastic guard there. And like all Santa Cruz frames, even though this large frame comes in at 1993 grams, you still get a full lifetime warranty, and it's a full lifetime warranty on the Reserve wheels as well. So properly tough, no rider weight limit. This, you know, while those forks are going to twang around and you're going to get some arm pump if you're hammering a long descent on them, the actual vibe of the bike still really, really solid, and it's got this kind of inherent muscularity in this mainframe. It's properly chunky mainframe, still really, I mean, really, really tight tracking. There was a bit of twist in the back end, a bit of twist across the rear axle if you're really cranking it across like off-camber stuff, or really, really putting the watts through it. But the propulsion through these massive chainstays, down tube there, and right through to these Santa Cruz 760mm carbon bars, that's proper pure drive. And at 10.4 kilos for this large, without pedals on, it's an absolute rocket ship when it comes to acceleration. And just moving around to the bars again, some more detailing here. You've got level TLM brakes, not a ton of power, well, to say the least, yeah, pretty damn weak, to be honest. And you've only got 160mm rotors on there. But to be fair, that's about as much as you want to be putting in terms of braking through these almost completely treadless Maxxis Aspen tyres. But it's a 2.4, so you can run the pressures pretty low. I've been running about 18-20 psi in these tyres because you've got that broad 28mm internal rim, and you know they're a really nicely damped wheel set. And also, if you run skinny tyre, if you run really lightweight tyres like this at too high a pressure, they just ping and pinball all over the place. So although you might be tempted to kind of run them about 25 psi, you're going to get a really, really sketchy ride as a result. Going back to other componentry, this little Syntace Light Force stem, Freudian slip there, it is genuinely a gem. Absolutely gorgeous, sub 100 grams, yet super stiff and super strong. These really are a masterpiece of cold forging and machining from Syntace. And I can tell you, anyone who runs this stem, say hi to Finley there, anyone who knows just how good this stem is knows how to spec a bike properly. And then over here you've got the RockShox remote for locking out the fork and the rear shock, just with that one twist grip there. I mean, the downside, I mean, that's great in terms of convenience and getting that real punch when you want to crank it up a hill. But the downside is you get a metal collar on the outside edge. There's kind of no way around it. You don't want it in the center. So that can get a little bit bruising. And like I say, that fork on a long rocky descent, by the end of last night I did two-hour rides on this as part of the live ride review, and by the end, thanks Finn, and by the end of it, you know, my hands were getting a bit beaten up, my arms were getting a bit pumped, but I was flat out full gas for two-hour sessions. So kind of what do you expect, really? In terms of other dimensions, chainstay lengths are specific to each bike size. So the smaller the bike, the shorter the chainstay. And there's not a massive difference in chainstay length, but it's just to keep the whole geometry proportional. And then BB height is 330 unsagged. But I mean, as much as the stiffness is, as much as the mainframe stiffness is a big aspect of how well this bike rides, it's this, what they call the Superlight suspension system. I mean, obviously the Superlight used to be a bike in its own right from Santa Cruz, but this flex stay suspension, I mean, that's an entirely new thing for Santa Cruz as it is. This very carefully profiled, I mean, you run your finger on it there, it's very subtly just swollen and tapered, and so it flexes in exactly the right point and exactly the amount of spring and rebound that Santa Cruz want from this setup. They went through countless iterations building them in their own in-house carbon facility in Santa Cruz in California to get just the feel they wanted, and then they've matched it to this fully forged and then CNC machined one-piece linkage here, and then, like I say, this Sid Lux shock. And the interesting thing is, although Santa Cruz certainly used to rely on quite a lot of anti-squat to give their bikes this kind of characteristic kick under power, now for this model they've actually shifted to much less anti-squat but a lower leverage, lower progression rate shock, because obviously it's a fairly low volume shock here, and they've used that behaviour to create a really, really firm pedaling platform, and actually it's actually pretty tight off the top, which matches the feel of the Sid Ultimate up front. And so fairly tight off the top, but once it starts moving, really, really smooth, and there's no kind of pullback through the chain because there's limited anti-squat. It just sits beautifully because you've got that stiffness in the frame, but the way it kind of twists and just enough. I mean, it's really, really hard to describe, as you can tell, but there's just enough kind of compliance in the frame to keep that back wheel glued down and give it this really alive, visceral, kind of athletic feel, but also the stiffness to absolutely make sure none of your watts are getting wasted, and you're still getting remarkable amounts of grip out of that rear tyre. But, you know, it's the actual tune, you know, talking to Carriman, the suspension guys at Santa Cruz, the actual tune they ended up with isn't that radical, but the way they've set it up within this kinematic system, it just gives just the feel of this bike is brilliant. Like I say, make sure you watch the live ride review because you'll really get a feel for how this bike rides. But consistently blew me away with kind of its just ability to be doing exactly what you wanted, exactly when you wanted, kind of exactly the amount you wanted. And it's just a real no-brainer suspension system. Loads of support, feels great when you're pedaling, and yet when you start hitting stuff hard, it just opens up brilliantly, takes the sting out, keeps the back wheel on the ground. Remarkably good at taking up decent-sized hits, considering the tiny shock and the fact there's not a load of rear wheel pull. I'm amazed, because looking at this bike, as you'll see, you know, it looks like pretty much every other flex stay cross-country bike that's been around. You know, this design's been around for ages. Very, very similar to the Specialized Epic Evo in particular, but it rides very, very different. There's something just weirdly Santa Cruz and just just in how hard you want to ride the damn thing, which is ridiculous, really, because this is the super light XC version. It's not even the trail version with the 120mm fork and the tougher tyres and the more travel at the back. But dear Lord, I mean, I've ridden a load of cross-country hardtails, and a lot of them are super efficient and super light, and, you know, the kinematics very clever. They're getting better and better and better as a category. They're getting more and more reliable and rideable from a trail point of view. But this has just got that brilliant sweet spot of spark, but also the ability to kind of save your neck most of the time, but also just be a totally thrilling ride. I'm waffling on again. Go watch the live ride review for that. What else do I need to cover off on here? I mean, again, little Santa Cruz detailing there, these little blisters for the cables in there, and all the cable routing is internally sleeved, so it's really easy to thread through. You've got 2 bottle mount positions on the down tube, you've got another one there, and then underneath you've got a 3rd bottle mount there for your Jardia mount bottle. I can't remember who said that on Instagram the other day, but I thought it was funny, so I'm stealing it. Looking at the fork, you've actually got the rebound is literally just a little Allen key in there, and that's what you use to adjust the rebound on the rear shock as well. So again, you know, they're just really working on all the lightweight touches they can in terms of spec. And this, I mean, just over £8,000, but this bike is actually only 130 grams heavier than the full XX1 top of the range spec, which is nearly 10 grand. And just other neat details, like the fact the bearings are all fully lifetime warranted, and they use serviceable and replaceable, and they've spec'd torque cap hubs, so even though these 32mm legged SIDs are pretty twangy as their baseline, you've got that extra connection, the broader hub end cap on there to give kind of maximum stiffness across the axle. And I have to say, having ridden different wheels in that is genuinely noticeable when you're really riving this bike about. And just moving it around to this side, you can see you've got, that's your linkage there. I mean, interestingly, that's the same across the TR and the XC bikes, and in fact the whole frame is the same, so it's relatively easy to switch between the 2 travel options. Between the 100 and the 115, you just need to get a different shock stroke in there. But just look at the size of that chainstay and the kind of the depth of that bottom bracket area. That's how this bike gets your power to the back wheel and gets you screaming out of every corner and blasting up the hills. Oh, and the saddle, yeah, they've even gone so far as to fit a nice titanium rail saddle on there. So not carbon that you're worried about cracking, but titanium, so much lighter than steel, but a lot more reliable than a carbon fibre saddle. And that's kind of just the whole vibe with this bike, actually. Although, yeah, obviously it is, you know, this is the race-specific model. This is the one that's got a bunch of top 10s this year. It's won the Glen Tress endurance race. It's got a load of fastest known times on sort of epic cross-country loops as well. But it's still tough. And yeah, I mean, I've done a bunch of different rides on this over the summer. I've done super long solstice rides through the middle of the night. I've done innumerable short single track sessions, and just chasing everywhere on it. You just loves sprinting out of every corner and just getting as fast as it can in every situation. And that doesn't always end up the right way up. You know, there is a limit to that fork. There is a limit to these tyres, and there's a limit to 100mm of travel. And there's more and more cross-country bikes coming through. Trek have just announced their top fuel. That's 120mm now. You've got Scott Spark, and there are other bikes, you know, that theoretically have more, and probably do have more capability. But then, obviously, you've got the TR version of this. But there's just something phenomenal, and I find deeply addictive about the ride quality of this bike. I'm absolutely smitten with it, and I don't even like the colour. So yeah, I've had it all summer and I've absolutely loved it. So yeah, so I guess all that's left to say is thanks massively to Santa Cruz for letting me hang on to the Blur for ages. Phil from Santa Cruz has been chasing for a while now, trying to get back for their demo fleet. So sorry to all those people who wanted to demo it, and I've had it, but I'm just addicted. I'm going to really genuinely miss this bike. But thanks to Zero Cycling UK for sponsoring the channel. Thanks to PTs. Thanks to Crud as well. Thanks to my Patreon supporters who subscribe on a monthly basis, and they get exclusive, extended, behind-the-scenes, ad-free edits as a thank you for their help kind of grow the channel and, you know, essentially pay for the time some of the time it takes me to take time out and make these videos. But if you like what I'm doing, click for notifications so you can see the next one. I've got videos of the whole of the rest of the Santa Cruz range as well. I'll be picking up the new chameleon hardtail shortly, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Like I say, make sure you watch the ride video from yesterday, and there's a bunch of other edits like Solstice Ride edit that this Blur's been in. I mean, it's been a regular in the background of a ton of videos whenever I've needed something seriously quick to get the job done faster than anything else I can think of, and just have a ton of fun while doing it. This has been my go-to ride. And yeah, but you know, obviously flag up in the comments any questions you've got on the bike, any comparisons you want me to make. Scott Spark, hopefully have the new Canyon Lux Trail on channel shortly as well. I'm booked in for that very shortly. So like I said, this category is getting better and better and better, and it's right up my street. I love a fast, agile, superlight bike, and the fact they're now getting more and more chaos capable is just total gift for just making them more applicable to more riding. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan on Guy Kez TV, talking about the Santa Cruz Blur X01 Axis Reserve. It's been one hell of a summer thanks to this bike.